The Trans-Canada Trail is known as the world's longest recreational trail, and filmmaker Dianne Whelan is sharing her 6-year-long journey traveling across it in her latest documentary.
The world had stopped making sense, and I was feeling lost too, you know, and full of anger and disappointment. So I just wanted to be alone in nature for a while, and I set out to make a documentary on the longest trail in the world.
Dianne biked, canoed, snowshoed, and walked the trail, learning more about herself and the strangers she met along the way. The 24,000-kilometer trek included more than 8,000 kilometers of rivers and lakes. And what started out as a lonely journey turned into a hopeful and passionate story for Whelan. And Dianne Whelan joins me now in studio. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Travis.
It's such a pleasure to talk to you. I know that you have done so many different films. You've looked at so many different areas of our world, including Mount Everest. Why did you want to explore your own backyard, Canada?
Well, Travis, as you said, I am a documentary filmmaker. I've been to Everest and I've been to the high Arctic. So making a film on the longest trail in the world wasn't that crazy, except it was a lot longer. But also, you know, for a number of reasons. Also on a personal level, my marriage had ended of 13 years. My dog had died. So I did find myself at a place in life where I thought, you know, I need a new film, check.
Yeah.
I need some time out. I think checking out to check in, make sure that, you know, whatever I rebuild my life, that it's authentic and it's sincere and I'm on the right path, you know. So I thought, well, this will be great. I can make a new film. I'll get the time alone that I really need right now. But also, you know, they built this trail, Travis, to celebrate Canada's 150th birthday. Yeah. And I'm a storyteller. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'd like to tell this story from, you know, the story that I went on this trail to find started over 12,000 years ago. And that's the story that I wanted to bring to this trail. So, yeah, it ticked off a lot of boxes for me, and off I went.
Off you went. Did you know at the outset that it was going to take you 6 years?
No. I would say the very first change that happened to me on the trail was day 10, when I made the realization that I had not gone in 10 days what I thought I could do in 3.
Right.
There was that type A schedule, day 1, day 2, day 3, and I'm like, this is a fairy tale. This is make-believe, and you got to like face reality. So I burned my schedule that day, and I would say that was the first lesson, like the first shift in me, as in, you know, because I had to drop the rabbit suit and put on the turtle shell if I was going to make it. I
know at the beginning you said, you know, I'm not an athlete, I'm not a wilderness expert. So what made you think in your head, I'm capable of having this journey?
Well, part of it is just like any goal. You know, I'd already kind of pushed that bar a little bit. I mean, I didn't know if I could spend 40 days on Everest and film a film at 18,000 feet, but I did. But you don't know until you try, right? I didn't know that I'd be able to sort of hang in there with the Canadian Army on this radical trip up to the high Arctic, but I did. And you don't know until you try. So I guess there's no failure in trying. So I thought I'd go and try, you know, and it doesn't really matter what goal you have. At the end of the day, you have to break that goal into tiny steps to make it attainable. And a trail kind of lends itself to that, because the only way you're going to get from here to there is one step in front of the other step, or one paddle, you know, after the next paddle. So I just started looking at it as one day at a time, one step at a time. And when I got inspired, I stopped and filmed. And usually when I'm filming a film, it's under so much pressure. Like, got to get the film in the can, as you know.
I'm aware.
But with a 6-year journey, I could really relax. Like, it was actually a decadent gift to give to myself as the visual artist, because I'd be like, oh, look at that light. And I can stop and film here. I don't have to, you know, I can be with it. So it was kind of very cool that, I mean, I love filming and I love writing, and I got to do both of those things most days of the week for 6 years, so.
You know, these days we talk about political divisions. You know, there's so much talk about, you know, how we're different. What did you learn from talking to people across this country about what unites Canada?
That's a great question, Travis, because one of the great things I'm most proud of in this film, and actually based on that whole experience out there for 6 years, was that nobody ever asked me, are the hundreds of people that I met, are you liberal, are you NDP, or are you conservative? Because it really doesn't matter. When you're out there, it doesn't matter. We don't ask ourselves those questions. When we meet each other, it's like, hey, did you see those moose prints, you know? Or like, there's some fresh water over there, and hey, like, where are you from? And oh, we're gonna have a fire, or hey, buddy's got a hose at his house if you wanna like get some water. Or,
yeah.
It was that kind of thing, right? So it really was what, you know, when you met people, it was what we shared that mattered, not how we were different.
What did you do when things went wrong? Because I understand.
You mean after I cried?
Swarms of mosquitoes, rainstorms, boots that had holes in them. I've read kind of all of these issues that you went through. So was that kind of like, was there ever a point where you're like, I don't know if I want to continue this?
No, there was never a point.
Really?
Yeah, except for, I mean, that's not entirely true. At the end of 2019, I got a message that my mother's aorta exploded and she wasn't expected to live. And I came off the trail and I went to the hospital that she was at in Vancouver, and I made a little bed in her room. And I thought, as I stared at her healing and maybe dying at the time, that's it for me. This is where I need to be now. This is my new journey. But my mother made some miraculous recovery. I mean, for a woman in her 80s to recover from something like that was quite spectacular. And then she just like took her little walking stick and like, out you go finish this journey. So she made my job really easy. It was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And she's like, and I will be waiting for you at the finish line. And she was waiting for me at the finish line. So that was the only time I thought about quitting, really. Once I started, I'd given up everything. There's no place to go back to.
Yeah.
So I was kind of committed to it once I set myself on it, but I liked it. I actually got used to it.
Lots of scary things that you could have encountered on your journey. I understand a bear was involved here. Tell me this story.
Sure. First of all, I want to just put it into the context that I met 100 bears, let's say. I'm just guessing, okay? A lot of bears, all right?
Yeah. And most were friendly.
99 were.
Okay.
Right? So I hate making people afraid of things because it's not always like that, right?
Yeah.
But for sure, so what the story is, to give you, it's a scene in the film. I'm paddling with actually Louisa, and we're paddling on the Mackenzie River, and we haven't seen anybody paddling in 4 months, but we've heard that the man who was paddling in front of us, who's from France, also an artist, was just taken out of his tent at 3:30 in the morning. Julien Gauthier was his name, and eaten by a bear. And we are the only other people in this area, and
wow.
This was quite a game changer for us. 2 weeks later, sure enough, we're at a camp, and a bear is coming into our camp, and it's, we have a shotgun. We fired a warning shot, and the bear kept coming towards us. Fired another shot, and the bear stops. So it was a quick departure that day, very, very quick departure, and no bear or human were injured, but it was tense for sure. But I would like to say that I don't know if it would have been as intense if, Julien just hadn't been killed, right? So
you can't imagine what that moment was like when you learned that news. Talking about the people that you met along this journey, you also went to a number of Indigenous communities. What was it like in that space? And also sometimes, there's respect that comes along with being on that land. How did you navigate that and making sure that you're respectful of Indigenous communities?
Okay, so before I even left, 3 months before I left, I went to a film festival in Haida Gwaii to show my last film on Everest. And while I was there, I met a traditional knowledge expert named Vern Williams. And we'd only been talking for like a half an hour, and I'm like, Vern, actually, I really need some guidance. I really want to honor the ancestors of this land as I cross it. And how can I do that? So we met the next day, and he gifted me an eagle feather that was his, that he used in ceremony. It had incredible beadwork on it, and I could tell by the look on his face that it was actually very painful for him to give me this, because he loved this feather. I would say that, as far as material things go in his life, it was probably the thing he cared the most about. I accepted this feather, and for me, this was like reverence. I treated it like something very sacred. And I was terrified, because how am I going to look after this feather on this extremely rugged journey? And what I didn't know was, in accepting this gift and treating it as I did and looking after it and having this reverence for it, I carried that in my heart. And because I did so, that shaped my whole journey. Because what we carry in our hearts shapes our journeys. That was one of the lessons I gathered from, in hindsight, looking at the 6 years and how that changed everything. We don't have one pan-Indigenous culture in this country. We have many different First Nations. So every community I went to, I asked to speak to elders, and I went to listen and learn, but I did learn the different protocols. So when I was with the Anishinaabe, you know, if you're going to go into ceremony, you have to wear a skirt. I haven't worn a skirt since my 20s, so I had to go find a skirt. Someone lent me a skirt, and I was able to wear a skirt. If you have a desire and in your heart you want to show that respect, that knowledge will come to you. I mean, you are what you're seeking, really. So, you know, if you're looking for that, it will come to you. And you know, like I said, I spent time in many, many communities, Indigenous communities across this land, and actually that's where I found my hope on my journey.
Wow. What an incredible life. You know, even the 6 years, I can't imagine what this was like for you. You learned so much about this country, about different communities in this country, but I guess my last question for you is, what did you learn about yourself?
Well, I left with not a lot of hope. You know, I love what you all do here, especially at, you know, CBC, but the news can be pretty negative, right? Yeah. If it bleeds, it leads. I went to journalism school. You know, I learned that my first day. It's important for people to be aware of what's going on. I'm not saying that it's not, but, you know, it does feel like, whoa, like, is this world being run by psychopaths right now? So when I left, I kind of had that sensibility about me. But after 6 years of just kindness after kindness after kindness, like in 6 years, I never met somebody that wasn't kind to me. So that narrative changed. The narrative in my mind was, wow, we actually live in an amazing place where people are really kind. And the other thing I learned is that when you're afraid, everything that is coming at you in your life, you're going to see through the lens of fear. And that's, I think, what's causing so much fractionalization. And when you go out and you have an experience like this, the narrative changes, because that's not, it's like a plant. What you feed will grow. What you stop feeding will die. And so, you know, when you say kindness and kindness and kindness, and, well, I don't feel that the world's full of psychopaths anymore. I actually feel like the world is full of kind people, you know, because that's what I met.
Incredible. Listen, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. Really appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Travis.
Dianne Whelan here on Canada Tonight.
Pleasure's mine.